Grab your vests, we are on bridge duty. This video is going to be part 1 of a series I'm doing on the evolution of Bridge 4 from the Way of Kings clear through the end, hopefully. So this video is going to have spoilers for the entirety of the Way of Kings. I don't plan on having spoilers for the further books, so you should be able to watch these based on what book you are currently on right now. Most of this video is going to be told from the perspective of the members of Bridge 4, not Kaladin specifically. I will have some things from Kaladin's point of view because he is the point of view character that we read the book from, but I already have dedicated videos to Kaladin, so this one is Bridge 4. And no one cares about the Bridgemen, except for us. Bridge 4 existed before Kaladin came to it. Up until the Way of Kings, it was just another bridge. It was the worst one, but the war was already on, the bridge crews were already running. For Bridge 4, Kaladin was the catalyst. Bridge 4 was a death sentence. All the bridges were, but Bridge 4 got the dregs. They got the worst, the most dangerous, and no member of any bridge crew hoped to survive. There was no hope for the future, they just existed, waiting to die. The most recent bridge leader, when the book starts, didn't even wait to die, he went to the honor chasm. Gaz was probably really annoyed by that, and the very next day, a new slave arrives, one with a Shosh glyph. This one is dangerous. Of course, Gaz puts him in Bridge 4, the worst bridge. And he arrives just in time for a bridge run. Gaz directs this bridge run. There is no point in picking a new bridge leader until he sees who survives anyway. This new bridgeman, branded as dangerous, probably isn't worth much, not even worth the vest and the sandals that they are supposed to get. And when those horns blow, bridgemen run. And it's that bridge that's what matters. The bridge, the hunk of wood, always comes back. The members of the bridge crew don't always come back. And every time a bridge goes out, it goes out with new members. It's never the same group for multiple runs in a row. So this new guy, Kaladin, he has to run the bridge with no gear. The only encouragement comes from a voice in the back, a face he never even sees, a voice whose sandals he eventually wears and keeps for a long time, the whole book, I think. And running that bridge is the worst thing that Kaladin has ever done. It's the worst thing he's ever been through, but he keeps running. He has to. There's no choice. And bridgemen don't get shields. If you're watching this, you've read the whole book. So you know that the point of the bridgeman is to be bait, to be a target. Kaladin doesn't know this yet. None of the members of the bridge crews really know their purpose. They think their purpose is to get the soldiers to the battle. Really, their purpose is to protect the soldiers with their lives, but they don't know it and they don't get a choice in it. And every time that bridge goes out, it loses a few members until eventually it's cycled through, and Kaladin is the only one left from the men he started with. The only other guy that he had known and the younger boy have both died. And this feels like the end for Kaladin. This is when he reaches his lowest point. And Syl leaves him. Whew. I'm not getting into it about Kaladin here. I talk about it more in my Kaladin video, but that is a rough chapter. Kaladin is ready to go to the honor chasm. He is done. But once there, Syl convinces him to give it one last try. It's not like he can fail. They're going to die anyway, so why not at least try? This is a new start for Kaladin, but the members of Bridge 4 don't know it yet. It's a new start for them too. First step, Kaladin has to go to Gaz and confronts him and bribes him. Interestingly, I think Gaz is the only one besides Syl who even knows that Kaladin went to the honor chasm. As far as the other bridgemen know, he never even left. But things are about to change for Bridge 4, and the beginning of change is resolve. Kaladin had to decide to change and to do something. Although without action, the resolve doesn't mean much, but Kaladin acts. And he starts by waking them up. And he asks them their names. Bridgemen didn't share names with each other. Why bother? You might meet someone one day and the next day they're gone. There is no point in learning people's names. Oh look, there's a new bridge person. Let's learn their name. Oh, they're dead now. But that is the first thing that Kaladin does when he wakes up each crew member. He asks their name and he remembers them. Let me tell you, there is a big difference between waking them up from sleeping and waking them up from their apathy. And here's where I'm going to shift a little more from the Kaladin point of view to the members of Bridge 4. Because Kaladin was that catalyst. Before he came in to wake them up, they were just in that apathetic, waiting, we're gonna die, there's no point, nothing matters mindset. Now imagine being in Bridge 4 before Kaladin comes in waking you up. You're waiting each day to see if you're the one who dies or comes back. And the apathy is a survival mechanism. Shutting off feelings to not care. Shutting off feelings to not have to feel pain. Every day watching everyone else around you die until it's your turn. What is the point of anything? What is the point of getting up in the morning? Then along comes this bridgeman, their bridge leader, trying to wake you up, to make you try. Those bridgemen are highly resistant. And the truth is, Kaladin cannot make the bridgeman care. He cannot look them in the eyes and say, you are gonna care now. You are going to try to survive. The only person he can make care is himself. So he does. In fact, when he had come back from the barracks, from the honor chasm, and he was looking inside at the sleeping bridge crew, he felt like something had changed. It felt different. It's not Bridge 4 that's different. Right now, it's just Kaladin. He is the only one. He is the only one with resolve. He's the only one who's decided to change so far. And they don't want to give up their names. That is the last thing they own. Teft is the first name that Kaladin gets. The book says that Kaladin held those names like precious gemstones. The names matter because the men matter. And that is the end of part 1 of the book. Kaladin coming in, waking them up, asking their names. Beginning of part 2 of the book is the very, very beginning of the formation of Bridge 4 as the people instead of the bridge. And it starts with them getting dragged from bed. In the case of Moash, literally dragged, thrown over Kaladin's shoulder. This bridge leader wants to change their lives. He wants to make their lives harder. Aren't their lives already hard enough? They should be allowed to give up. What Kaladin is asking them to do is really hard. It seems pointless. Moash is like, no, we're not doing that. And they all just leave Kaladin. Then they see Kaladin, their bridge leader, doing what he said. So wait a minute, the bridge leader wasn't just trying to get more control? Did he really mean what he said? They see Kaladin out there running back and forth with that big piece of wood on his shoulder, and they're taking bets on whether it's a lighter piece of wood that he's using just to try to impress them. And when the bridgemen come out and see him, Kaladin finishes training, and he dismisses them for lunch and reminds him of what their duty for the day is. Except Kaladin, as bridge leader, only has authority on the field when they're actively running a bridge, and the bridgemen know this. In fact, Moash challenges him, asks Gaz right in front of Kaladin, hey, he doesn't have authority right now, does he? But it feels like Kaladin is just trying to get authority and control, and they don't need another Gaz in their lives. Although, Kaladin tells Syl later that authority doesn't just come with a position or a rank. Authority is given by the people who decide to give it to you. He doesn't have it yet, but this is like a beginning. He's just starting to make an impression on the rest of the crew. So the next bridge run, this guy trying to be more than just their bridge leader doesn't fall down to rest during crossings. So they run, set the bridge, fall down, rest. Not Kaladin this time. He refuses to lay down. He stays standing. And the bridge crew, seeing him, is like, seriously? You just have to prove that you're better than us? Obviously, he doesn't really care about them. What he's doing must be self-serving somehow. It's the only thing that makes sense. But at the final push of this bridge run, the bridge leader, the person who has that position, is allowed to go at the back of the bridge where it's the safest. But Kaladin doesn't. Instead, he sends Rock to the back and puts himself in the front. This is a lot more meaningful because that is the most dangerous position. It's like saying, I'm willing to give my life for you. Nobody does that for bridgemen, especially not other bridgemen. As a bridge carrier, you are hoping that the arrow hits the person next to you, not you. And Kaladin is saying, I will take the front. That's putting a lot more meaning into what he's doing and saying. This is not a grab for control. This is him proving that he really does care. Or at least he's trying to prove it. Or to the other bridgemen, it must seem like he just wants to die at this point. He's not going to wait for the honor chasm, just go to the front of the bridge. That'll do it. But the arrows don't hit him. And besides Kaladin surviving, he starts saving the men. He starts going after the wounded and trying to drag them out of danger. He drags Haber and Gadol to shelter, and then he dives in among the arrows to get Dabid. But he's too weak to get Dabid the rest of the way. So Rock comes to help. And here's where it really starts to change. Before it was just Kaladin, but now Kaladin isn't alone. He's not the only member of Bridge 4 who is trying. When Kaladin and Rock get back with Dabid, Kaladin says there are more to save, but he is obviously too weak. So Rock and Teft go to find more wounded. And this absolutely exhausted bridge leader keeps trying to save them. He's cauterizing, cleaning, sewing, bandaging. They still lose one of their members. But at this point, it's so obvious that Kaladin is trying to help, not trying to control them or be in charge of them. More bridgemen are helping now. And normally those bridgemen who are wounded get left behind. Kaladin has to threaten and bribe Gaz some more to be able to bring their wounded back with them. And this is such a first for any of the bridgemen because no one cares about bridgemen. No one. Kaladin would be the first. The next morning, they're very interested to see what Kaladin does. It could have still just been all a show. He could have tried to go that extra mile to prove whatever it is he's trying to prove. They still don't believe he's actually for real. But they see Kaladin get up, and he checks on the men that he brought back, and then he goes out to practice with that piece of wood again. He is so tired. He should be resting like everyone else rests. But instead, he continues to push himself. And Bridge 4 is very confused. Nothing that Kaladin is doing makes sense to them. And this bridge leader, who's acting all strange, he did know about healing. He knew how to help the wounded. And it was really weird how when he chose to go to the front of the bridge, the arrows hit the bridge around him, but didn't hit him. What does it mean? Has their bridge leader gone mad? They don't know yet. They're kind of in wait and see mode. Nothing that Kaladin has done yet has really affected them as a bridge crew so far. So they think what Kaladin is doing is weird. They don't know what to think about it, but they're not angry yet. But then after Gaz comes to talk to Kaladin, Kaladin comes and tells them, helping each other is going to make all of our lives harder. The wounded that we brought back aren't going to get paid or fed. Kaladin wants us to pool our resources. We hardly get paid anything as it is. They don't want to give from their meager little chips to pay for food and medicine for those other guys. They usually spend their days waiting for each other to die, hoping it's not them. Moash laughs at him. If Kaladin really cared, he would make their lives easier, not harder. And now, Kaladin is making them gather rocks on their day off. Now they're starting to get angry. They are fated to die. Why can't Kaladin just leave them alone? Why does he have to try to make their last days, because obviously it's their last days, why does he have to make them worse? Why? Kaladin feels like he's starting to understand what he's doing to them. Again, he's thinking of a sphere analogy, like he's offering them spheres, but nothing to spend them on. And for the bridgemen, what is continuing to live even worth? So Bridge 4, as the people, not the hunk of wood, now they're up to 3. Kaladin, Rock, and Teft. A trio. These 3 have started working toward a common goal. What a start. Just that little thing, working toward a common goal with other people really draws you together. All they're doing is trying to gather the knobweed, something that can help heal their wounded, something they can sell to feed their wounded. More importantly, though, they laugh together. The bridge crews don't have much laughter. You don't laugh when you feel heavy. It takes a certain amount of lightness to feel like you can laugh, and they're like offering and growing that light in each other. And then they get extra chasm duty. This one, the bridge crew directly blames on Kaladin. I believe it was the other bridge crews that bribed Gaz to give this extra chasm duty to Bridge 4, but Kaladin is a good one to blame. He's the one stepping out and doing stuff, and everyone else needs someone to be lower than them. They're the lowest ones in the army. If they can get someone lower than themselves, then they're not the lowest. But in that chasm, down deep in the dark crack in the ground, Kaladin and Rock and Teft are talking to each other. They're laughing, and they are like a light that is drawing other bridgemen in toward them. It draws in Dunny, and Dunny actually sings. That must be a strange sound in a bridge crew. The others are still resentful. In fact, they bond over insulting Kaladin. Kaladin picks up a spear and they start making fun of him. Oh, look at that lordling. If he was in the army before, he must have cleaned latrines. And then Kaladin starts spinning his spear around, and he looks like he actually knows what he's doing. And he's actually doing it really, really well. And then there's like this light shining around him. What is happening? Who is this guy? There is no way that he is for real. But after watching Kaladin and seeing the few bridgemen who are like connecting and building relationships, on the way back they pull a few more in. Bridge 4 is growing. And later that night, most of the bridge crew have gone into the barracks. They've settled in for the night. They hear singing outside and they smell food. They are being invited into that light and into that warmth. They're being invited in to be part of this group. Not just the men who are running the bridge, but the men who are in it together. None of them turn the food down. This is the first Bridge 4 stew. And after that night, the next morning, more of them start joining into the training. And that is the end of part 2. When part 3 starts, all of them are now practicing together. Some of them still die, more of them are getting wounded, but they are growing together. Something that either Gaz or Lamoral noted, I don't remember, that Bridge 4 was already learning to run in step with each other, which was impressive and gave them a huge advantage over other bridge crews. Besides just practicing and growing in their physical strength, making it easier, making the bridge feel lighter, and Kaladin's dream is to keep them alive. At this point, that dream is unrealistic. Even though they don't know it, their role in the army, their role as bridgemen, is to die. So they're still going to die, but they'll be able to die with a sense of brotherhood. That's not nothing, but it's not enough for Kaladin. And here's where Kaladin starts teaching them the side carry. Seems weird. They don't know why they're doing it. At this point, they trust Kaladin enough to do it anyway. This is also where Lopin joins. He doesn't know what he's joining, but there was a choice to go with the person who was choosing, and so he said, pick me, pick me. And as soon as Lopin joins, there is a bridge run. Lopin has time to grab his vest, and he carries water for the bridge crew. And on this bridge run, they try the side carry. This weird thing that Kaladin was having them practice that they didn't know why. Suddenly, their bridge becomes their shield. They were never allowed shields, and it worked. Yay for Bridge 4. No casualties. They made it. The side carry was perfect, but only for them. There were so many casualties, so many deaths. They lost Sadeas the battle. Kaladin had been far too focused. He had been laser focused down onto just his crew. He had never seen the wider picture. So now, for trying to save his crew, far more than he could have imagined have died because of him. And he will be judged by the Stormfather. Okay, trying not to focus on Kaladin, the rest of the bridge crew. Imagine being one of Bridge 4. They have finally woken up. They have pulled together. They are living their lives until the end. And the one who brought them all together is about to die. He's hanging outside by his feet with a storm about to come. They promise Kaladin that they will keep on. They won't forget. They will continue to do what he started. They'll keep having the stew. They'll keep helping each other. They'll keep talking to each other, staying human. Teft gives him a sphere for luck, and then they leave and go back inside to wait out the storm. And just imagine them huddled up in their barrack, listening to the storm, this one being worse than any other. The storm is killing their bridge leader. Who said that when the storm was over, they would go out and look at him and he would open his eyes? Yeah, right. Who listening to the storm would believe that? And who among those men really believed? There's definitely something different about Kaladin, something special, but living through a high storm, I'm sure they all wanted to believe. I'm sure they all hoped. Kaladin is the one who awakened that hope in them. When the storm is done, Rock is the first one to run out. It says he charged around with the other ones following. And I'm going to say out of all of them, Teft is probably the one who wanted to believe the most, but who was the most jaded and least likely to actually believe. He's lived a long life of disappointment at this time. He's the most world-weary. He's old enough that his knees ache when a high storm is coming. And so they all go out and they look at Kaladin, and he opens his eyes. He kept his promise, and he lived like some kind of magic. While Kaladin is out, injured from the storm, they have 2 more bridge runs. They lose 2 more men, who at this point Kaladin knows by name, which was an interesting thing through the book. Whenever someone dies, Kaladin names them in his mind. Those names were important. They were the first thing he got from them. He treasures those names, and he repeats them to himself when one of them dies. And the bridgemen, they didn't know how to help those, the 2 that died, without Kaladin to help them. Kaladin was the healer. And they still practiced without him. They were out there practicing the bridge run. I don't know what they would have done if Kaladin had actually died. They made him that promise, but whether they would have banded together to keep it, I don't know. It might have been a slow descent back into apathy, but he didn't die. Kaladin lived. Just the fact that he's alive energizes them to keep practicing, to keep hoping, to keep moving forward together. And they want to impress him when he wakes up. And at this point, my tea is almost gone. My memory card has this much left on it, so we're going to continue this video tomorrow. And we're back. It is the next day. My lighting might be a little different because it is super bright outside, and I still have plenty of notes left. We're not even up to part 4 in the book yet. So bridge crews have a bridge leader. They did go on a couple of bridge runs while Kaladin was down, and they tried, or Gaz tried, to make Rock bridge leader. Rock would not accept. He's not the bridge leader, Kaladin is. And when Kaladin gets up, the bridgemen are so happy. They feel lifted. This leader who's been trying to help them, who didn't die, is now up and about again. And they even feel some kind of reverence for Kaladin. Partly because of everything he's done for them, but also partly because he does seem a little special, magical. There's something to revere here. And then, of course, immediately after Kaladin is up and around, there is a bridge run, and he tries to go. He's up. He wants to go with his men. He ends up carrying water instead, which is just fine. But Kaladin has been learning. Since trying to protect his own bridge crew, this time he really observed how the battles go outside of just the bridges. And this is where Kaladin finally realizes the purpose of the bridge crews. The bridges are to get soldiers across chasms. The men carrying the bridges are there to be a human shield for the soldiers. That's why they don't get armor. That's why they don't get shields. A bridgeman who has survived, by definition, is a bridgeman who has failed. They are there to take the arrows so the soldiers don't. And this really brings Kaladin back down again. Everything he's been trying to do to pull up his bridge crew to help them survive just feels pointless all over again. And that night, at the evening stew, the mood is cheery. The men are happy. Kaladin is back, and the members of Bridge 4 have started to become close regardless of Kaladin. Even without him, they were still able to maintain the little, like, rituals and routines and stuff that Kaladin had instituted. Oh, and I love the scene where they give a gift to Rock. They had prepared this before they knew Kaladin would wake up, and they apologize for not having a gift for him. Like, he needs a gift, that's not why he's doing it. They give Rock a razor. They knew he wanted one. He complains about his beard and how he doesn't feel right, but they didn't know how emotional it would make him. They didn't expect him to get teary-eyed and run off. And the amount of celebrating he does once he's shaved his center thingy, whatever. He wants to adopt them all into his family. That night, Kaladin has a good little conversation with Sigzil. Sigzil has been really pessimistic, and he's still, like, pessimistically grateful. Sigzil really understands that they're all still going to die. He can see that Kaladin isn't saving them, but he's helping the men to embrace life while they still have it. I think that shows a little bit of how Sigzil likes to look at things without his emotions in the way, or at least he wants to think he does. He wants to see the facts. And the morning after Kaladin wakes up, the men are already up and dressed and ready. The routine is they practice running the bridge in the morning. Kaladin was doing that before any of them joined him. And now Kaladin's back and they're ready. Except Kaladin doesn't seem the same. Why isn't he ordering them to the practice yard and joining in? But before they can really get out of Kaladin why he seems different and why he's not immediately joining them, Brightness Hashal and her husband Matal are here to take over from Bright Lord Lamaril, who is not there anymore. Hashal and Matal are here to put a firm rein back on Bridge 4. And as part of that, Bridge 4 gets permanent chasm duty. That is the worst duty that Bridgemen get when they're not on active bridge duty, and Bridge 4 just gets to have it forever now. They are here to punish Bridge 4 and to suppress them. No more weird things causing battles to be lost coming from Bridge 4. And it now seems as though Kaladin has given up. He is not doing all the things they have come to expect, and maybe it seems like Kaladin is proving them all right. They didn't believe in him at first. They all thought he was a phony, and now it's like Kaladin is just saying, yeah, it was all a show. We're not actually doing this. Which, we know, reading from Kaladin's point of view, that's not what's happening. But for those men, it's gotta feel like it. No one really cares about them. Obviously, Kaladin didn't really care about them. And Kaladin, having been the one who lifted up the bridgemen, once Kaladin is the one falling back into darkness and despair, those other bridgemen aren't returning the favor. They're like mad at him now. I'm disappointed in them for that. I would have liked to see them try harder to pull Kaladin back up. I'm not sure they had been recovered for long enough to have the strength to do that. I think Kaladin deserved it, except for Rock and Teft. The first ones, they're still trying to pull Kaladin back up again. And maybe imagine at this time for Teft. When he first discovers Kaladin sucking in Stormlight, he thinks, why now? Why me? You know, he left the order that he was part of, and now he discovers a new radiant coming into the world. And now I'm thinking, as Kaladin is descending back into despair and not trying and giving up, maybe his thoughts are kind of like, why him? Why is it Kaladin? No surprise, Moash is the most resentful against Kaladin. He knew it. And they get down into the chasm and Kaladin won't even look at them or talk to them, except when he stands up at one point to say, there's no point. This is a very low point for Bridge 4. They're finally being made into something more than just men who run a bridge, thanks to their bridge leader, who it seems has given up. So now what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to draw together and stay Bridge 4? Are they supposed to give up? They usually follow Kaladin. Will they follow him back into the depths of despair? Freaking Kaladin. But you know what? From the perspective of Bridge 4, excluding Kaladin, it really didn't take that long. This is later the same day. When they're in the chasm, Kaladin has told them there's no point in anything we're doing. Kaladin goes and disappears off down a tunnel. I imagine the men are grumbling and sad at this point. After a little while, Kaladin comes back, and now suddenly he has a plan and a new hope for them. That didn't take long, did it? And now they can say, we knew it! Kaladin really is back. If the bridgemen always say, I knew it, what did they really know? It's all based on their feelings. So Kaladin is very honest with them. He tells them his plan. They're going to make an escape attempt. That's all they can do. If they stay, they will die. If they try to escape, they'll probably die, but that way lies a slim chance of hope, whereas staying has 0% chance. So, die for nothing or die trying. He also tells them he can teach them to use spears. He can teach them to fight. And this time that they've been assigned in the chasms is the perfect opportunity, down in the dark where no one is watching. So Kaladin tells them more his full plan. Here's the steps we're going to follow to do it. And slowly, one by one, they agree. They're not quick to jump on board and say, yeah! There's no cheers, there's no shouting, just determination. And here is another change for Bridge 4, because before, they were just trying not to die. But now they have a goal to work towards. The goal, escape and freedom, that gives them so much more incentive now. Having a goal to work towards is something that people need. And the bridgemen really needed it. Rock says he's not going to kill anybody though. They're a little disappointed by that. Rock is all tall and muscular and everything and would probably be a really good fighter. And then they get Shen, the Parshman. They are not happy about this. There is so much distrust having a Parshman who is so much like the Parshendi that their armies are fighting, but Kaladin insists that Shen is one of them. He's in Bridge 4, he is Bridge 4. But even Kaladin doesn't really all the way trust him. He never puts a spear in Shen's hand. Speaking of spears, they finally get their first day of spear training. This is so exciting. From that first day when they saw Kaladin doing his exercises or whatever, spinning that thing around, and it looked so cool. Now he's going to teach them. He's going to equip them. He's going to give them skills that they never would have had. They are so ready. Kaladin starts by telling them that this is normally where he would dress down a new group that he's about to teach. He would humble them, knock them down a couple of pegs. Bridgemen don't need that. They've already been knocked down so low. Instead, he points out their bravery and their determination. And he tells them it's okay to care. I don't know if any of Bridge 4 was worried about whether they were allowed to care as they were learning to fight, but Kaladin feels like it's important that they know. And then Kaladin drops his spear and says, we're gonna work on standing. Weird. It's like when I'm teaching a music class and I say, okay guys, we're gonna work on breathing. But wait, we already breathe all the time, every day. I know how to breathe. But you're going to learn how to do it a specific way on purpose so you are in control of it. And so when Kaladin demonstrates for them why learning how to stand is so important when you're fighting, he has 3 of them try to rush him to try to knock him down. They can't, not even working together. A demonstration like that is really good for saying, here's why you are going to learn this. And then Kaladin gives Teft an order. Get these guys lined up, separate them, assign them their tasks, and Teft is immediately like, yes sir! Like Kaladin had tricked him into responding like a soldier. Like, haha, I could tell. I knew you were a soldier. Teft wasn't too happy about that. And they learn quickly. These bridge crew members are hard workers. They have been worked hard, but now they get to work hard at something that they actually want to do. They want to learn the spear. And here is another change in the growth of Bridge 4. In the chasms, they start to become the group of men who fight together. And that is the end of part 3. Part 4 of The Way of Kings has a lot of growth for Bridge 4. This is where Kaladin starts teaching them what they are going to take to heart later towards the end of the book. At this point, they lose Dunny, one of the first ones after Rock and Teft to join in, and Kaladin convinces them to help other bridge crews. Up until now, it's been only about them. The focus has been narrow. Bridge 4 has only helped Bridge 4. And Kaladin kind of guilts them into it. But this is like the beginning of expanding their care. You know, earlier when he taught them it's okay to care, now he's teaching them, let's go care about others besides ourselves. Those other bridgemen are like us. You know how no one cares about bridgemen? No one cares about them. It's up to us. If we don't help them, no one will. It's almost like he's already teaching them some ideals that Kaladin himself doesn't even know he believes in yet. This makes Teft and Moash believe in Kaladin even more. Moash admits that he must have been wrong about Kaladin when he was doubting him. And a lot of this part of the book, in part 4, is just time spent in the chasms, growing as a group, learning more about each other, growing closer together. They're worrying about the future and how they're going to get away before they all die. Things are getting harder for Bridge 4 again. For a little while they were looking up, but now they lose maps. They have other bridgemen back at their barracks that they're caring for. So they're having to spend more money on food and medicine. They had to creatively problem solve how are they going to get spheres from the chasms. So they're making sure to save some back for themselves, which they're not supposed to do, and they would be severely punished if found out. And here, Teft decides he's going to test Kaladin. And he and Lopin both get to witness Kaladin pulling in Stormlight. Teft is known for a while, but this was like definitive, yes, he breathed that in, yes, it changed him. And Lopin is a witness. Kind of freaks Kaladin out. He runs off. This is the point where he meets Hoyd. And who knows what Teft or Lopin is thinking while Kaladin is gone. The Lost Radiants have returned to us. Our leader is as special, if not more so, than we thought or hoped. And at that evening stew, when Kaladin comes back, he wants to know everything that Teft knows. Syl had mentioned that one of the things she does is binding things. I felt like there was a little symbolism there of how Bridge 4 has been bound together by Kaladin before he even knows that his bond with Syl can even do that. But Bridge 4 is not dying fast enough for the Bright Lords above them. They keep getting shoved down and down even farther. Bridge crews die after a while. It just happens. They're trying to make it happen faster. Why won't Bridge 4 just die off and solve our problem for us? So now they get assigned permanent bridge duty and nightly chasm duty. Days spent waiting to run bridges, nights spent in the chasms. Oh, and Gaz is missing for some reason. But they're not ready to escape yet. Kaladin knows they need a little more time before they can fulfill the plan that he had for them, and they're not going to get more time. Chasm every night, bridge runs daily? Almost daily? This is going to accomplish what the Bright Lords are trying to do, which is kill them off faster. It's going to happen. Despite how fast the men are learning, they're farther along than any crew or any group at the same stage of training that Kaladin has ever taught before, but it would still take a few weeks. They don't have a few weeks. So Kaladin must come up with a new plan to save his crew, and that is Parshendi armor. He kind of hides this plan from most of his bridge crew except for Lopin. So as far as the rest of Bridge 4 knows, the next bridge run is just a normal bridge run, except that they're only running on like 3 hours of sleep because they spent the night in the chasms, and they are feeling really low. They feel the suppression that's holding them down. They don't know that Kaladin has a plan. They just know that life is becoming harder again. Moash says they should just attack the soldiers. If they're gonna die anyway, they may as well take some light eyes with them. And a lot of the crew members agree. This is how low they're feeling, like they would attack their own army just for the sake of killing some. And then, now that they're feeling low and talking about attacking soldiers, their bridge leader says he has another plan, and will they trust him? None of his other plans have worked. I mean, they're not free yet. They're also not dead yet, but they trust him. And here, Kaladin says that if his plan doesn't work, he will be dead, and he has instructed Teft to lead them in an escape attempt that night. And I have to wonder, did any of the Bridge 4 members secretly hope that Kaladin would fail so that they could actually attempt their escape that night? Maybe. Maybe a few of them thought it a little bit, but I think they would have dismissed it. Like, no, that's Kaladin I'm thinking about. Of course I don't want him to die. But luckily, Kaladin does his plan. He puts on the Parshendi armor. He goes running through, dodging between arrows. He becomes a target for all the Parshendi, and he completely changes that battle. And he lives, somehow, magically. And because of that plan and its success, things are finally looking up for Bridge 4 again. Now, there is a reason to not kill off Bridge 4. They have some more time, which is all Kaladin needed to get for them, was some more time to be able to escape with as many of them surviving as possible. This, though, was really hard for Shen. Kaladin knew it would be. I almost don't feel like enough attention was given to that. How Kaladin says Shen is part of Bridge 4. He is one of us, but he still continues to do the thing that hurts Shen emotionally, because even though Shen is part of Bridge 4, they're going to do what they have to do to survive, even hurting one of their own. And I mean, the book is long enough. Not like it needed more time spent on more things, but it could have gone a little deeper into that aspect of Bridge 4. And I think this really stood out, was that when Kaladin is talking about getting Parshendi armor for more of his bridge members, they all want to volunteer to be one of the targets. Putting on that armor and dodging among arrows like Kaladin did will make them a target. They are risking their lives by volunteering to do that. And this really shows how the men are changing, because at the beginning, they hope for someone besides them to get hit with an arrow. They are so focused on their own survival, and they have come full circle enough that they are willing to become the target of arrows to save others. From selfish to self-sacrificing, they are on their way. An interesting thing, Kaladin doesn't want to spar with any of the men. Teft is kind of pushing him to, like, this would really inspire the men. Show them what you can do. Show them. And Kaladin has a lot of negative feelings wrapped up in fighting with the spear. He's worried that if he picks one up, he'll go too far. So he's definitely holding himself back here. And Teft tells him that he hopes when the time comes that Kaladin is up for it. That time is going to be soon. And then we get to the big changing point for Bridge 4. When they leave on their next bridge run, they don't know that that's the last bridge run they're going to go on. You guys all know where I'm going here, or where they're going. It's the Tower. The Tower is one of those coming together portions of a book where you get those different perspectives that finally meet up, and it's such an amazing part of the book. It's one of the reasons, besides Bridge 4, that I prefer The Way of Kings out of all the Stormlight Archive books. It's a long bridge run. They are tired when they get there. Both Scar and Teft get injured, and as they're doing what they normally do, taking care of their injured, doing the whole become target thing, they notice that the battle is changing. Their soldiers are starting to come back and retreat. And they think, what's going on? I thought the battle was going well. They see Sadeas coming back and he's not injured. And it starts to become apparent to them that they're witnessing this huge betrayal among the high princes. And for Bridge 4, this is it. The opportunity they've been waiting for has finally arrived. They can be free. They just have to hang back a little bit. They have a bridge. They can just leave. They can go. Everyone will think they've died. It's perfect. And all this time, Kaladin, starting with those little lessons, the very first lesson he taught them, it's okay to care, to saving each other instead of just themselves, to expanding that care out to other bridge crews. He's been teaching them how to serve and save others, how to protect each other and others. Bridge 4 has come so far. It is not the same as when the story starts. And when their time arrives, and Kaladin is like, this is it, guys, we're free. He's like, actually, you are free. You are going to go and you're going to leave me because we still have injured members back at the barracks. This is another moment, like earlier when Kaladin was like, if I die, you're going to try to escape. Did any of them secretly hope he would die? In this moment, Kaladin is telling them, go escape without me. I promise I'll catch up. They are going to be so torn. This is what Kaladin has been preparing them for. Would they choose to escape and leave him? Luckily, they don't have to choose, because it's not just them. Bridge 4 isn't alone out on the plateaus. There is also Dalinar's army fighting the Parshendi. And as members of Bridge 4 have start to become people of honor, they naturally choose to do the honorable thing. And now, at this moment, when they are finally free, they have the freedom to choose for the first time. What do they choose to do? They choose to go back and save that light-eyed prince who has been betrayed. They owe him nothing. They have no reason to care about him. But they have learned to be better. They have learned to care about people outside themselves, and they go. They go. They were bridgemen, now they're heroes. And that thing they practiced earlier that they thought was pointless comes in so much handy now. Kaladin just shouts out, "Side carry!" Side carry right, whatever. I loved that they used it again, and it worked. And then Kaladin gets hurt, because of course he does. They might have to do this without their bridge leader. Earlier, they were going to have to choose whether to leave him to escape without him. Now they're going to have to try to rescue Dalinar's army without him. Luckily, he has trained them well. But then, before they've even finished setting the bridge across that chasm, here comes Kaladin running up, leaping off the bridge across the chasm like some kind of legendary hero. And now this bridge crew is the crew who fights together. Not for themselves, but to protect others. And that sets the precedent for the future. And this is a hard fight. They are not equipped for this. They lose 3 more, and they can't escape now. With 3 dead and so many more injured, they're not going to be able to carry the bridge. And that's not even considering the injured men who are still back at the camp. Dalinar, the guy that so many people have heard is so honorable, Kaladin doesn't really believe it, but he vows with every shred of honor that he has that Bridge 4 will be safe. He'll deal with Sadeas. Now, the honor of Elidais doesn't mean much to these men who have been slaves to the Elidais, but they don't have much choice, and they go with Dalinar. On their way back into the High Prince's camp, once they get to the permanent bridges, they leave their bridge and walk the rest of the way. They just leave it there. They don't even know how symbolic that is for them, that they left the bridge behind. And at this point, they choose to follow Dalinar as he goes to confront Sadeas instead of going back with the other wounded. They kind of want to make sure he actually follows through on his word, which he does. And there, for the first time, a Light Eyes shows care for the bridgemen. Not just care, but Dalinar recognizes their worth as people, not as slaves, not as people who can accomplish something for him, but as men. And that worth is priceless, which just happens to be the same worth as a shard blade. That's the end of part 4. Into part 5, we're almost there. We're so close. They have so much more now than they could have dreamed of. Not just freedom, but trust and honor and safety. And now they have a job that will pay them. They're all given the choice. They can go be free and take some money, or they can stay and serve Dalinar and fight for him. Kaladin's pretty sure that if he stays, Bridge 4 will stay. He doesn't promise, but they've stayed together so far. And now their fight for survival is finally over. Everything they have worked for and built together now has a purpose bigger than themselves. They had a long day. They had a hard day. They should probably be resting and sleeping, but that's not what they felt like they needed. After everything they've been through, Bridge 4 needed to sit outside in each other's company and have their stew. Amidst all the change that's going to happen, that stays the same. And the crew are super excited that apparently Kaladin actually is magic. All those things that they were like, somehow he's magically doing this. Yeah, he was magically doing it. The man that they already loved and admired and were loyal to because of how he cared for them and brought them up out of their darkness. He trained them. He did what he could to free them. He already was a hero to them in their eyes. And now he actually is one of those heroes from legend. Bridge 4 used to be a piece of wood under which people died. At the end of this book, Bridge 4 is left out on the plateau, and it's not a bridge anymore. It's the people. I won't talk about the next book yet because of spoilers. I will have a Bridge 4 video for each of the Stormlight Archive books. The next one might take me a while, so go ahead and subscribe so you see when that next one comes out. And in the meantime, here's a playlist of all my other Stormlight Archive videos. Happy reading and watching. Bye. Bridge 4.